What's up Guardians, today we are back with our insane Titan Loreley restoration build that actually makes you a god inside of endgame PvE. You can literally run around like a headless chicken, completely melting everything in your path with your solar abilities, whilst always having restoration active, which means you'll always be regenerating your health non-stop. And guys, it doesn't matter that I'm 30 under the recommended power level, because I just can't die. Sure, you can still be killed, there is a chance, but you have to take a stupid amount of incoming damage in order for that to happen. Or you mess up somehow where your restoration never applied. But either way, this is by far the best build in the game for Titans regardless of the subclass. It's that powerful that you can sit on War Priest's foot in the Kingsfall raid on day 1 with contest mode active and still not die. So if you're bad at the game, you'll become good. And if you're good at the game, then you'll be a complete god. So guys, be sure to leave a rating, comment what you think about this build, subscribe and share for more, and now let's melt everything. So like always, if you do like this build and you want to see more like this, then remember that you can check out the full playlist of new and updated builds linked down below. But with this build today, you will be able to run around like a pure god, just melting everything, because you will have infinite restoration one after another. You'll be generating a ton of elemental wells, which will buff your damage, give you ability energy, and help you resist even more damage. There's just so much to this build, and the best part about it is that it's so easy and simple to use. As long as you have the right stuff, then you're just going to completely own with this one. But really, there's actually only 2 things you really need with this build, and that's the Loreley helmet and 100 resilience. If you can achieve that, then you're all set, but I will go over the setup in just a moment. So a quick example of how this build works is first run in and throw your hammer on an ad to kill them. This will spawn a sunspot while generating a solar elemental well. Passing through that sunspot will grant restoration, roaring flames, soul invictus, and radiant, and then picking up the hammer will grant you a cure, and while picking up the solar well will grant you a damage buff by 25% to solar weapons that stacks on top of radiant for extra DPS to all weapons. Now this might seem like a little OP with all the buffs that we're getting, but it doesn't end there, because you'll always get your hammer back to repeat the process at any time. And as we're using the Loreley helmet, whenever we go critical, we'll automatically drop down a sunspot that will grant us restoration times 2. And with this build the way it is, you'll always get that class ability back before your restoration ends, as long as you keep passing through that sunspot every few seconds. Honestly, a lot going on with this build, but it's so simple and easy to use because all you need to do is just almost die or throw a hammer, and then you completely buffed out. It's no joke. It's literally a broken build, and it doesn't matter that we don't have many artifact mods that will benefit us because we don't even need them. This build can be used in any season, at any time, for anyone who needs that extra survivability in endgame PvE. And if you're someone who wants to do a solo flawless master or grandmaster activity, or even a dungeon, then this build is perfect for you to achieve that. Now if you have tough ads in say a GM, then your hammer is going to be a little weak, but once you get that final blow with the hammer, the next kill will be easier, and then the next one will be even easier as you're building up those stacks of damage to make your abilities more powerful. And you can actually complete master activities whilst underpowered with just a melee ability is that good. Now like always, getting into the setup, the very first thing you'll want for this build is a good solar energy or heavy weapon. I'm using a raid linear, which is a solar one for my heavy slot, along with an arbalist, so that will make more use of the linear scavenger mod and the ammo finder one, as I do have 2 linears on, but you guys can run whatever you prefer. I generally prefer the linears in endgame PvE at the moment, with not just this build but all my builds, because they have some of the best DPS in the game. Now one good thing about this build is that if you have a good bow, you can use that for overloads this season. Then you can use an arbalist for the anti-barriers and all match game shields, and then use the Inferno Whip solar melee to stun the unstoppables, and that way you have all match game shields covered as well as all champions. So you're all set for whatever activity you need to do, and you won't need to rely on your team to cover certain shields and champion mods. For the subclass, we're using the Titan Solar 3.0 Sunbreaker Hammer of Soul, and we'll use the Rally Barricade as it has a faster cooldown, but we're only using this to get restoration when placing it down, so it's like a mini healing rift, but actually better. Then we have the Throwing Hammer to also give us a cure and restoration, and then a solar grenade for a bit of ad clearing. But you can use the healing one if you really want to. Aspects are Soul Invictus, solar ability final blows, and defeating scorched targets create sunspots, and our abilities recharge faster when standing in them. And passing through a sunspot will grant us restoration. I really do wonder if Bungie will ever nerf this, because it is pretty OP, not gonna lie. The second aspect we have though is Roaring Flames. Final blows with solar abilities or ignitions increase the damage of our solar abilities, stacking up to 3 times. For the fragments, we have Ember of Eruption. Solar ignitions have an increased area of effect, mostly using this for the plus 10 to strength for my triple 100 stat build. Ember of Singeing, so that our class ability recharges faster when we scorch enemies. Ember of Torches, so that we become radiant when we hit enemies with that hammer. And this will also make your allies radiant too if they're nearby, but the last fragment is Ember of Solace. Radiant and restoration effects have an increased duration. If you want to, you can apply this one here, although I don't like the fact that it takes away 10 resilience from me, so it's really down to personal choice. But you really should always be buffed with restoration anyway, so I feel that it's not really needed. Moving on, the exotic that we're using is of course going to be the Loreley Splendor Helm, because this thing is basically like a Warlock's Healing Rift but better, as it will create a sunspot at our foot when we go critical. And remember that when we pass through that sunspot we will get restoration, so it's sort of like having classy restoration last season, except built into the exotic, and honestly the best exotic in the game right now. But moving to the main mods, first up we have Reaping Wellmaker. This will spawn us Void Wells when we activate our class ability and get a weapon kill, and then we'll use Well of Tenacity for a plus 40% damage reduction when picking up that well, Radiant Light so that we get a plus 20 to strength stat. I'm only using this mostly because I like to have my hammer back as fast as possible in case I do miss an enemy and accidentally yeet it off the map or something, which has honestly happened a lot of times. So having that strength stat as high as possible will help us to get that back quicker, which is what you want since we are throwing that hammer at enemies, which is going to make us radiant too, so that we can always have extra DPS. The next mod we have is Melee Wellmaker. Since we have infinite hammers, we will be able to spawn an infinite amount of solar wells, which we'll use on Font of Might for an extra 25% damage to solar weapons, which is why you want to run those solar weapons. For the normal mods, back in the helmet we have the Inferno Whip so that our solar melees can stun the unstoppables. Literally the best mod a Titan could have to easily unstop a champion. Wait, did I really just say unstop? What I was meant to say is easily stop an unstoppable champion, but with the Inferno Whip, throw on your Ammo Finder mod because you will need it. In the gauntlets we have our champion mods, which would be your Overload and Anti-Barrier ones. Chest armor we have the Damage Resist mods. Leg armor we have our Ammo Scavenger mods, and then lastly in the class we're running Utility Kickstart and Distribution for that ability cooldown, along with 100 resilience so that we can get our class ability back before our Sunspot and Barricade goes away. Then after that I'd go with 100 strength and then try and max out Discipline as well if you can, as we are a solar Sunspot ability build and we want to burn enemies to create sunspots, which will give us that restoration. In terms of the exotic weapons you can use, I'd go with a Sunshot, a Skyburner's Oath, an Ariana's Vow, Tiku's Divination, Sleeper, the Lament, or even a Galahorn. Honestly, a really good build with so much potential, and I can only see this build getting better in the future seasons where we might have more artifact mods for the solar subclass. But overall, I'm rating this build a 10 out of 10, being the best build in the game out of all classes, specifically because the restoration effects you get and the consistency of them is just purely insane. And the best part is that you don't have to do anything as long as you have the Loreley Splendor Helm on. If you don't have it, it's still just as good, but you won't be able to manually get restoration by placing your barricade down. Although my favourite part about this build is that the way we have it set up, you can always have restoration with 100% uptime, as you can get the barricade back to create another sunspot before the first one even expires. An amazing build guys, and you definitely need to try this one on. See the dim link below for the full setup if you need to. Now guys, that is your full newly updated Titan Solar 3.0 restoration build with the Loreley Splendor Helm in Destiny 2 Witch Queen Season of Plunder. Next you should check out the playlist below for more upcoming builds this season for Season 18, as there has been a lot of changes in the game recently, and I have a lot more fun and crazy builds to come that I want to go through. So be sure to stick around if you want to see more, and whatever you guys get up to, have a good one, and I'll see you all in that next build video this Thursday. Peace out.